So the idea is to have one of these paintings, but with moving eyes. He really is watching me now. So the initial setup, I'm just going to set up right here in the kitchen, and this will just give me a little bit extra room to work with. So I picked up these frames from the dollar store. They're $1.25 each, so relatively cheap project. The idea here is to create a polaraxing image. Now polaraxing is when you have two images at two different focal lengths, so when you're looking at it at different angles, the images will start to overlap one another. And in my case, it's going to cause an optical illusion. It's going to make it look like Bill's looking at you. Now I wasn't sure how many layers I was going to need, so I ended up buying 5 of these, but only ended up using 2. I'll eventually use them for something else though. And to clean them up, all I had to do was scrape off this black right here. And to do that, I just used the razor blade, which came off relatively easy. So here's the idea. One layer is going to have Bill's Cipher, and the other one is going to have the eye. Very quick painting. This project in total should take you maybe about an hour at most. So I already have my outline done, so I'm just going to darken up everything and re-outline it a couple times just so it's not see-through. Somehow in my case, I ended up flipping this image around, so I painted on both sides, and I only need to paint on that one side. I really don't know how this happened. So using a razor blade, I just kind of removed all the extra paint on one side. And now that I scraped off that, I realized a lot of the paint's missing on one side, so I'm just going to go ahead and retouch that up. Afterwards, I'm going to scrape off a little bit of paint just for the highlights. Now I probably should have done this first, but I don't normally paint on glass, so the idea of painting backwards is a little odd for me. But this idea right here should work out just fine too. Now I normally like to add all my highlights on the right side of my images, which I forgot that it's backwards, so... You know, it just occurred to me. Pretty sure those highlights are on the wrong side. Yep, wrong side. And then using a Sharpie, I'm going to add a little bit of cross-hatching on that. And so for the eye, all I have to do is just add a little highlight, and then the rest of it can just be a solid white. This will also double as the background. So right here, I had the idea of adding a shadow for Bill. Ultimately decided that it wasn't going to work out. Yeah, that's a bad idea. Here, added just a little bit of orange on one side, in hopes that it'll give Bill a little extra color on one side. So now that the orange is done, I'm just going to add on a bunch of yellow paint to the back of it, and that should work out nicely. And so then I had this idea. I've drawn Bill on a book before, and I really like how those words look behind him. So the idea is to print out some words, cut it down to size, and try to make it look like he's sitting on a page. So here I'm cutting everything down to size with my cutting board, and just trying to make this as square as possible. Just going to give it a quick dip just so the color is a little nicer. And then we're just going to let this air dry for a little bit. And since I got a bunch of these laying around, I'll just use this to dry it. Now that that paper is dry, I'm going to go ahead and get some gouache and reload my palette. And just going to add a little bit of splatter to that page. So here I'm just going to tape it onto Bill just so that it stayed in place. But after looking at it, I decided it wasn't the idea I liked. Right, of course, the paint sticks to the tape. What else would it do? And right here I ended up ripping the paint a little bit. Tried my best to smudge it back into place and then add anything that was missing. Oh no, a jar! The glass is definitely not forgiving, or I'm just using the wrong paint. So my next idea is to actually add the splatter directly onto the glass. And because I don't learn my lesson, I ended up doing this twice in a row. And then I think I had to come in a third time at this point to do any touch-ups again. It's even funnier the second time. And just so that it's not so clean, I'm gonna add a little bit of black around this. And I'm just spilling paint everywhere. I don't even know why I kept this here. And I'm just gonna finish off any little touch-ups that I see. It's definitely not my favorite painting, but at least I did get the eye to work out. It does stare at you wherever you look. I do like the idea, so I'm probably gonna revisit this one day. You know, at this point, I should have just drawn in the book.